Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Rewatch. My name is Samuel,
And I'm Jaden.
and today we're going to talk about the season finale of season 2 of The Mandalorian, and obviously
Let yeah,
spoilers.
let's just start with saying like major spoiler warning.
Yeah,
I obviously the thumbnail will probably give you a bit of a hint as to what happened in this episode. And look, it's been 3 days since the episode aired, so if you haven't watched it yet and you've
it's
clicked
your
on this
fault.
video, then you've got yourself to blame. But yeah, major spoiler warning because we will be going into basically everything that happened in this episode.
And quite a bit did happen.
Yeah.
I guess we'll sort of obviously there's the main moment that I think we'll probably spend most of our time talking about,
Mm-hmm.
but I feel like that's almost like separate from the actual show itself in a way now.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think probably best to just go through it chronologically. And did you have any like general thoughts about the episode in terms of like them leading up to
God,
that awesome moment?
I'm just trying to think what happened in like the start of the episode because
Yeah,
it,
it
it
was
just
like
got like
yeah,
outshined by like what happened at the end.
yeah,
Um
yeah, for sure.
yeah, so we see obviously the Slave One and Boba Fett and the crew are chasing down this I think it's an Imperial um Tidarian starfighter or something.
Mm,
Um
yeah,
and that has Dr. Pershing on board, who we've seen a returning
yeah,
character throughout the series. And obviously, they capture him, which it's a shame. I would have liked to see more about what's happening with Grogu and, the blood that they took from him.
mm,
There's lots of theories floating around that it's going to involve Snoke and cloning and all that.
please no.
Force sensitive cloning. If they go that direction, I will hate John Favreau for that. Um, but they might have to explain it eventually, so it might be
Mm,
a good way to do it. But yeah, so we see the Slave One return. We see all of the characters that we thought we were going to return. We see Bo Katan and her sidekick. I can't remember who she is called, but we're missing the other guy. I don't know where he went.
yeah, where the hell was he?
Yeah, I
He
don't
was
know. He might have
he
just
must have.
not wanted to come back for the last episode. I have got no idea.
It's so
Um,
bizarre. People were making fun of like maybe he was in the bathroom and then because you know how they walk into like a bar
yeah,
and
yeah,
it's like the two of them sitting down and then like Axe Wolves, I think his name is, he's just like in the bathroom and he comes out and everybody's gone and he's like, the Pulp Fiction meme where John Travolta's just like looking around like, what?
yeah,
Where
yeah,
did
yeah,
everyone
yeah.
go?
No, it's interesting because if you didn't know, when George Lucas visited the set of The Mandalorian when they were shooting this season, he actually named the character Axe Wolf. So
Yeah.
that was essentially his character, and then they just stuffed him.
Just like,
um, but no, I found that quite funny. Anyways, it's just a small thing. He was kind of a side character anyway. Yeah, so we see Bo Katan and can't remember the other one.
yeah,
Then they
the
get
other one.
into like a bit of a brawl with Boba
Yeah,
Fett,
that
who
was
spends.
bad. That was bad for me, to be
You
honest.
didn't
That
like
was
that?
like no, I thought that was like so it just felt so unnatural. Like Boba Fett rocks up and then suddenly as soon as he rocks up, Bo Katan starts like, antagonizing him with expository dialogue, being like, you're just a clone and, telling us where he's from and his origin and everything. I'm like, lady, we already know this. You don't need to tell us like that he's a clone and that he's not
Yeah, but
technically his father's son. And
some people don't know that, right? You gotta. John Favreau and Dave Filoni are trying to tie in as much of Star Wars in fan service and making sure the fans appreciate what they're creating with their content. But it's a new series, so they have to explain everything as well for the newcomers. I mean, it can't
mm,
just all be directed to what we want to see. You have to keep in mind that there's people watching this that have no idea who Boba Fett is, so they do
no,
have to explain it.
yeah, I just felt like the whole. I felt like it was unnatural, like that they just start like fighting straight away. Like what did Boba Fett do that was so bad, except for like just like living, and now they want to like have a fight for like 5 minutes, but we all know that they're not gonna actually fight because they're gonna be on the same team in about like 10 minutes, and I don't know. I I liked Bo-Katan and her friend more in the first episode where we saw them, but I want to give a shout out to myself because I did predict that she'd be back, or did I? I'm not sure.
No, I see. I don't think you did. I think I
I
predicted that they would
predicted.
come back, and you said no.
Yeah, yeah, actually, that's right. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
But I take the accomplishment because I predicted the very end, didn't I? Like I might not have said it when we were recording, but I was like, Skywalker's coming back. He's coming back, and you're like, no, 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 no.
well, I don't know about that. I think there was lots of theories going around about which Jedi it was going to be, and obviously, you had all your big ones: Luke Skywalker, Mace
Ahsoka.
Windu, Ahsoka, and it could have been any of them. I never said no, it's not going to be Luke Skywalker,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, because it was highly possible that it was Luke Skywalker. I just didn't know how they were going to portray it, and
Mm,
there's issues going around with how they did it as well. But I feel like that's probably not the main reason to hark on about Luke Skywalker and
yeah,
how they
yeah,
CGI'd him. It's just the
mm,
fact that we've got him back, right? I mean,
yeah, yeah,
it's been, I think it's 40 years since Empire. It might be 40. When did Empire come out? It was 19.
yeah. Well, Return of
Uh,
the Jedi, and obviously, yeah, how he was mishandled in the sequel trilogy, and yeah,
I
and
think I think Return might have been 1983. So if you do some simple math, 37 years. Um,
probably, I'm not
yeah,
sure.
37 years since we've seen, green Luke lightsaber. It's just good to have them back. I mean, I think people should be appreciating that rather than, oh my God,
Mm,
they CGI'd his face. It's terrible. Because in
yeah,
reality, it's not. It's just, we're gonna see these issues with movies, right? Because it's the age of where computers are trying to figure out how to um, make people look younger. It's a
mm,
difficult task, and there's always going to be people out there that just don't appreciate it. But I think that we should be looking at rather that he has come back because it's good to see
yeah,
him again.
yeah, yeah. It was. I don't really know. What did you think of Moff Gideon in this episode? Because obviously, like we were all predicting, obviously Ahsoka gives him like a lightsaber equivalent of Beskar steel spear, and she's like, "Oh, you can use this to fight Moff Gideon." Wink, wink. Um, and so the Mandalorian has a spear, and so we all know that he was going to have to fight Moff Gideon at one stage.
Yeah,
And
I
and what did
think
you think about that duel?
I think we called it last episode, right? We said he was going to duel with him with the Beskar spear, um, and I think it was quite well done. One thing I probably would have liked them to do a bit better is portray Moff Gideon as um, more menacing. He
Yes, I
felt like he
agree.
was kind of thrown away in this episode,
Yeah.
and that the real threat was these dark troopers, right? Um,
Mm.
Moff Gideon,
Robots.
yeah. Moff Gideon just, I don't know. He seemed like we've been setting up 2 seasons for this massive duel with Moff Gideon, and then he just gets Cara Dune just hits him in the head with a gun, and he's knocked out. Like I don't know about that, but no, I do think that I'm just gonna say it right now that I do think this was probably the best episode we've received from the Mandalorian thus far. Probably my second favorite is the Jedi, which obviously we see Ahsoka Tano come back in live action. But I do think this was probably the best one we've seen so far, and that's not even just to say that it's because of Luke Skywalker. I think that some of the music in this episode as well, obviously scored by Ludwig Göransson, was just fantastic. I was listening to one of the pieces before. I'll see if I can get it back up.
Is
Because
it the Luke Skywalker piece? Because that was beautiful.
it was the piece where he was passing off Grogu to Luke Skywalker, right?
Okay,
And
yes.
and
Is it a
we
bit of Luke's theme in
yeah,
there?
yeah, it's a bit of the Force theme in there, and we get
Yeah.
uh, the Mandalorian Din Djarin obviously looking at Grogu when he's in Luke's hands, and then they kind of switch frames every now and then, just looking at one another. I think that was just fantastic. I'm trying to find the piece now. I was listening to it before, but I think it was just amazing.
Yeah, and just in general, obviously, like we're wrapping up the season in this episode, but like a major shout out to Ludwig Göransson
Yeah.
because the music throughout both seasons has been absolutely phenomenal, and fingers crossed he's coming back for season 3 and beyond. Because yeah, I feel like his music really elevated a lot of the scenes. But it's funny that you said that this is one of well, was your best episode because I think for me, apart from the Luke Skywalker stuff, I feel like this episode wasn't that good, to be honest.
Okay.
And so my problems stem from the fact that we touched on it now. The Moff Gideon wasn't made intimidating at all,
Hmm.
and that's an unfortunate trend we've seen with Disney Star Wars. Obviously, like think of Kylo Ren and General Hux and Supreme Leader Snoke, and they're set up to be big bad guys, and then when it's time to be a big bad guy, they are either easily defeated, become whiny brats, or just get no character development beyond being an idiot. Like it's unfortunate because Moff Gideon was set up to be this really awesome
Mm.
bad guy, and Giancarlo Esposito is like phenomenal in Breaking Bad. He's one of the most terrifying, like intimidating villains ever,
Hmm.
and he like compared to the Mandalorian, his character in Breaking Bad doesn't do nearly as bad as the stuff most of the time.
Hmm.
It's just like the material, and yeah, I feel like having I feel like the duel was well done,
Yep.
but I feel like Mando is like I don't know I feel like he won too easily,
Fair enough.
and then Moff Gideon sort of like taken into custody, and he's just like being thrown around and not really on top of things. And yeah, what I did really like though was the duel between Mando and that one dark trooper,
Yeah.
because that one dark trooper was like really quite dangerous,
Yeah.
and you could tell that. And he was like throwing Mando around all over the place. So I was like, oh my gosh, like Mando might actually get hurt here.
When he was like slamming Mando's like helmet into the wall, his head
Oh
against the
yeah.
wall, it just shows you how powerful these troopers are. Like they're hands down the most powerful droid we've ever seen in Star Wars history. Um, but yeah, they're really powerful. I mean, Mando's facing off against one and he can barely win. Imagine a whole army of 40 or so. I think there was 40 on the ship. Um,
Hmm.
there's no way he's going to win, right? Um,
Yeah.
but no, I quite like that. And I've seen people saying what the battle between the Dark Trooper and the Mandalorian should have been what happened between Moff Gideon and the Mandalorian, right? But
Yeah.
at the same time, the Dark Trooper is like a robotic enhanced fighting machine. I mean, Moff Gideon's just a regular human guy, right? So
Hmm.
I feel like what we got between Moff Gideon and the Mandalorian was a lot more realistic.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. That's fair.
yeah, but I probably would have enjoyed a little bit more action between
Hmm.
them, but I don't really mind. I think the highlight of this episode is what we see later on. So
Yeah, I feel like this episode killed Moff Gideon's character. Like there's no way that he can be the villain of season 3. Like he's done.
it's interesting you
Because
say that, yeah, because I don't even know where they're going to go from for season 3. Right? They've
yeah,
got so
even
much
if
to
there is a
explore.
season 3, because I think this
Season 3
episode,
has been confirmed.
yeah, but then Boba Fett's on at the same time. So what's the go? Like,
So
uh,
I'm seeing people are saying that um, season 3 is going to be called the Book of Boba Fett, right? Um,
hmm,
and they're going to kind of transition the show into a more Boba Fett, Mandalorian oriented type of show rather than exploring the baby Yoda or Grogu, because Grogu's storyline was kind of seasons 1 and 2, right? And
yeah,
obviously they have a lot more to explore there, but I feel like at the same time the show is called The Mandalorian, so we should be
yeah. I mean, they
seeing
could
The Mandalorian.
they could easily make the change and make it the Mandalorians,
Mm.
and then they could do whatever they wanted with anyone. So obviously we have Bo-Katan, but speaking of the Bo-Katan, obviously the dark saber at one stage, during the duel, Moff Gideon like loses the dark saber, like it falls out of his hand,
Mm-hmm.
and he looks at the dark saber, and I'm like, this guy's going to use the force, isn't he? Like it's going to be revealed that he has like some sort of force powers. And I was like, I wouldn't know how I feel about that. But like in the moment, I was like, oh, just do it. That would make it so much more interesting and make this guy so much more menacing.
Mm-hmm.
If he, wasn't like particularly powerful, like obviously Luke Skywalker doesn't care about him. Like he's not on the same level as Luke.
Mm-hmm.
But like maybe if he could do like a few tricks here and there, that would make it a bit more interesting. But it wasn't. And you know what? I'm fine with that. I'm fine with him just being a guy who's relatively smart,
Mm-hmm.
but didn't really pan out that way for the rest of the episode.
It's interesting. Interesting you say that because I never picked up on that. But what I did pick up on is when we see the X-wing fly in, right? He kind of looks terrified in a way of
Yeah.
what he knows is about to happen. So he might have sensed it in the Force. He might actually be Force sensitive. We just don't actually know it yet. It hasn't been revealed. And that might tie into the way that Moff Gideon escapes in season 3. Um, I just wanted to call that out now, just in case it happens, and then I can be
Yeah.
like, "I told you so."
That
But no,
would be cool.
if they go that way, I'll be happy. But at the same time, I also really like his character right now, and how he is just a regular human, and he is facing off against, um, the Mandalorian and all these other really
Mm,
strong characters. Um,
mm.
but moving on, um, what happened next in the episode?
Well, then obviously Mando gets rid of all of the Dark Troopers, and we're like, well, that was a big threat that Mando just like threw out the ship. They're gone.
Yeah,
And I was like, oh, that's a bit underwhelming, but
yeah.
obviously they come back later, so that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then we sort of have like a scene where they're in the control room, and there's a bit of tension as to who can have the dark saber because we know that Bo-Katan wants it. We get that in episode like 3 or 4 or something. I think it's 3. Um, and so we know Bo-Katan wants the dark saber, but Mando has it, which means that Bo-Katan has to fight Mando to get it.
Mm-hmm.
Mando's just like, bro, just take it.
Yeah.
Bo-Katan's like, I actually really enjoyed that dynamic because
That's
it was,
pretty good, eh? She knows that she wants to take it, but she can't. And we saw that in the Clone Wars as well, where I'm just trying to think of his character. Who's the leader of the
is it the
Death
guy?
Watch?
Oh,
Also,
Saxon
also,
something?
yeah, yeah.
Saxon something?
Also voiced by Jon Favreau. He
Oh,
obviously
yeah.
had to fight. I think it was Darth Maul to gain the
Yeah.
dark saber, or it might have been Bo-Katan versus the leader of the Death Watch. Either way, they're bringing back the sort of the law that you have to beat someone in combat to be the rightful owner of the dark saber, and then obviously lay claim to Mandalore, which I think was
Mm,
quite good to tie in the Clone Wars with that.
yeah, it's cool. I love those tie-ins with the prequels and stuff.
Yeah.
So I think that's potential conflict for season 3. And I don't know if you saw it in her face, but when Bo-Katan was, being antagonized by Moff Gideon saying, "Oh, you're going to have to fight him now," you could sort of see her expression change, and she sort of became like she sort of had like a grimace, like, "Oh,
Yeah,
I'm going to have to, like, I'm coming for you now, Mando."
yeah. That's what I
And
thought
so,
was going to happen, but we didn't get that.
yeah, maybe that's like the first episode of
Yeah, who
season 3
knows?
or something, maybe. But yeah, I remember in the Clone Wars, Bo-Katan as a character, like she was all friendly, but then like she got very fierce.
Hmm.
And I feel like we haven't seen that fierce side in live action yet.
Yeah,
So it'll be cool to see that, and obviously cool for Katie Sackhoff, the actress, to play that part of her character on screen. So yeah, I guess I'm looking forward to season 3. But before we get to there, let's touch on the most important part of
yeah,
the entire 2 seasons, I imagine,
yeah.
because what this represents for Star Wars fans is
Just
something that we've been
beyond,
missing.
yeah. This is just a huge step forward for Lucasfilm and Star Wars in general. I mean, this is what fans have been waiting for since 2015, not 2015, rather since Return of the Jedi, I'll say. which was 37 years ago. They've been waiting for this moment. And we were promised this in the sequels, right? We were promised Luke Skywalker, um, the real Luke Skywalker to return, but we never got
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Um,
We got that. I'd say we got that in the Force Awakens. Um, but then, if you think about the plot as to how he got to that island, which was created by Ryan Johnson, we never saw Skywalker again. We never saw Luke
no,
Skywalker again because that man on the island in the Last Jedi, you can say like everyone has their ups and downs, whatever, but Luke Skywalker doesn't. He's like the golden child of Star Wars. He's just always got his, he's always calm and confident and collected. I mean, he turned his dad back from the dark side.
when you see Mark Hamill crying on the set of The Last Jedi about what has happened to his character, you know something's wrong, right?
Hmm.
And I'm not sure if you knew that, but he
No,
was
that's horrible.
physically tearing down on set because of how Ryan Johnson absolutely shattered his character. And no, it just feels so good to see his character be given justice in this one episode of a show that has just absolutely smashed all of the sequel films out of the park. It just feels so good to see it again. And we weren't even alive when the original trilogy was made, right? And you can see
Hmm.
how much of an impact it has on us. So imagine people when they were watching, the first time when the Return of the Jedi released, and now they're watching this 37 years later. I just couldn't imagine the feeling for them.
Yeah, yeah. This was so good that I had to show my dad. So if that means anything, and obviously he's been a Star Wars fan for the longest time,
Hmm.
a lot longer than me. He probably did see like some of the prequels in the cinemas, most likely.
Yeah, well, my,
Um,
my dad saw the original trilogy when he was
yeah,
young, when he was younger than me. Yeah.
and so it's sort of like that generational aspect that Star Wars has, and I'm like, I went to see The Force Awakens with Dad, and I remember, us talking about it on the way home. Like, Finn's got to be a Jedi, and Rey's so powerful. Like, oh, gonna get to see Luke Skywalker next, in 2 years,
Mm.
and like it was so exciting. And then I think we went to see The Last Jedi together, but to be honest, I can't even remember because like there was no conversation around it. And we went to see The Rise of Skywalker, and we both walked out of that, and we were like, well, it was okay. I'm not going to watch it again though,
Yeah.
because I know if I watch it again, I'm going to hate it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just,
And so, yeah,
yeah, it's just one of those things. I mean, I've always watched, the Star Wars films, the sequels in the gold class because they're just Star Wars means so much to me. Um, and I was, thoroughly let down with The Last Jedi, and not so much The Force Awakens and The Rise of Skywalker because they were okay films, right? And it was a lot of fan service, but The Last Jedi just absolutely destroyed the Star Wars franchise. Um,
yeah,
and seeing this at home, it's just it feels so good to see it again. I mean, it's just a weird feeling, right?
yeah. I mean, going back to the Boba Fett episode, with the first time we really knew that Boba Fett was coming back was when we saw his ship,
Mm-hmm.
and as soon as I saw that ship, I was like, oh my, like time stood still, right?
Yeah.
I was like, Boba Fett is here, and then when we saw the X-wing, I was like, I just had no words. I
Yeah.
was like, oh my gosh, this is
Yeah.
going to
They're
happen.
actually doing it. Yeah.
Because, one X Wing, there's only one person who can be in an X Wing.
Mm.
And I mean, I spoke to you about this, but I love green lightsabers so much. And my favorite type of lightsaber to see. And that's why one of the main reasons we chatted about this in the top 5 favorite videos is the green lightsaber is one of my favorite parts of Return of the Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
And we haven't seen that in the sequel trilogy at all, apart from that one horrible flashback scene where Luke Skywalker ignites it to try and kill a sleeping Kylo Ren. It's like, what a disgrace.
Yeah.
And then to see a green lightsaber given justice in this, small sequence
Mm-hmm.
with beautiful music,
Yep.
and just Luke Skywalker just like tearing through these dark troopers that have been set up to be such a incredible
Yeah.
force.
It just
Like,
shows you how powerful he is, right? Yeah,
they're nothing in comparison to him.
it's insane. If you know anything about lightsaber forms, you might have picked up on um, Luke Skywalker's lightsaber combat in this scene, and which forms he was using and employing. Um, I think there might be 7 lightsaber forms, but correct me if I'm wrong. I've got them up here. Um, he actually used various forms in this combat scene, which I just think the choreography was incredible in this.
Mm,
Um, and I wanted to touch on a few. So Form 3, which is Soresu, I might pronounce these wrong, um, is mainly used against deflecting blaster bolts. And a lot of the time we see in the scene Luke Skywalker deflecting blaster bolts. And actually, in one scene in particular, it's on a little security camera when they're all looking at him
yeah.
fighting in the hallway. We see Luke Skywalker put his lightsaber behind his back,
Oh, that was sick.
and
Yeah.
it's actually a direct it's
Yeah, who
taken
does that?
from Anakin Skywalker actually
Oh,
when
it
he does it.
is.
Yeah, so he deflects a lightsaber bolt right behind his back, and I just felt
Oh,
that's so
where
cool.
is what is that? Attack of the
I think it
Clones?
was Revenge of the Sith when they were on Mustafar, but I might be wrong there. It 100% was taken from Luke Skywalker, and it just shows you how much Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau care about this, just to chuck in those little things.
Yeah.
No, I felt that great. And it's funny because another form they used was Form 4, which is a Taru. And now, if you remember back to the Phantom Menace, when we see
Oh dear.
Qui Gon Jinn and Obi Wan Kenobi Force Dash,
Oh dear.
that was actually used in this scene as well. You might have not picked up on it, but they actually used Force Dash in this scene,
Really?
which I think was just so funny because it's such a bad lightsaber like form, but they decided to chuck it in anyway. Um, I think that was just great. And then we also see a lot of Form 5, which was mainly used by Anakin Skywalker because this is like Luke Skywalker at his prime. This is when he's the strongest, right?
Yeah.
He's just been through the events of fighting Darth Vader, destroying him. He's been trained by Yoda, and this is like the pinnacle of Luke Skywalker in his
Mm,
combat. And he was just absolutely destroying everything here.
yeah.
At one point we see him force crush
Mm,
a dark
Darth Vader
trooper,
vibes.
Darth Vader vibes, right? Um,
Yeah. And
and
Luke Skywalker was giving off those sort of dark side vibes in
yeah,
Return of the Jedi because he was wearing the dark robes
yeah.
and when people went into the cinemas of Return of the Jedi, it was sort of like, is Luke Skywalker going to turn to the dark side? And he almost does, doesn't he?
Well,
Like in the
that's
events of Return of the Jedi.
that's mainly why George Lucas decided to change his robes to black in that film.
Mm,
Is
in the
to
droop.
is to fool people, is to create that tension as to whether Luke Skywalker is going to turn to the dark side, and then obviously he's wearing them throughout the whole film, and then we see at the end, he doesn't actually turn to the dark side. But no, I found that quite clever how George Lucas did that. Um, but yeah, so we see many different forms of lightsaber combat come into this one fight choreography scene, which I just think was fantastic that they're touching into that sort of stuff. Um, and at one point, we see um, a really, really cool shot where Luke's holding out his lightsaber in front of him, and then he like force pushes a dark trooper away from him, and he's like kind of holding
Oh,
it off.
yes.
Just looks so cool seeing him back.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's got the hood up because, CGI, and that was definitely okay with me. Obviously, if this was Return of the Jedi, he would have taken his robes off to fight. That just makes sense
Yeah.
from a visual, like being able to see around you. Um, but it was so cool seeing the shots where he's got his lightsaber like down by his side, and he's just walking along,
Hmm.
just tearing up, like not only using that awesome choreography, but also using his force powers and displaying how powerful he is.
Yeah.
Because that was a major part of, the 6 films is not just, being able to, hit someone as hard as you can with a lightsaber, but also using the force,
Yeah.
the main thing about Star Wars. And yeah, obviously, I want to draw the parallel to Darth Vader's scene in Rogue One
Mm-hmm.
because there was definite parallels to that, and I think that's awesome.
100%.
And I think that's the one time in Disney's history as of yet where they've been able to reference another good thing that they
That they've
did.
done. Mm.
Yeah, and fans be like, "Hey, that's a reference to something that you did, Disney."
Mm-hmm.
Like that's not technically fan service because
It
you
feels like
sold us on that.
it's original stuff they're creating, right? And they're bringing it back and they're reminding us about it, and it feels good
Mm,
because it's new content that they're referring to. It's not fan service, like you said. So it's
yeah.
it's great that they're recognizing their previous work, and they're
Mm.
building on that.
Yeah, because they haven't done that. Obviously, they know like it's not hard to look up a YouTube video and go into the comments and see how much people hate the sequel trilogy. And Disney know that people don't like the sequel. That's why we got the Rise of Skywalker because everyone hated the Last Jedi.
Yeah,
And, like Disney know this, but it's nice like because they haven't referenced the sequels because nobody wants them to,
yeah,
and they haven't referenced Solo because it made no money because the Last Jedi was bad.
yeah.
But Rogue One is sort of like the exception to this, and obviously we're doing a podcast on Rogue One this week, which will be exciting.
Hmm.
But I feel like Disney get to earn this, obviously,
This is their moment.
yeah, yeah. This is the moment where they could draw upon a cool parallel that they also created. So hats off to them, and hats off to Dave Filoni and John Favreau for being able to create such a moment and write it into the actual plot because it actually makes
Yeah,
sense. A Jedi was going to show up, and I was thankful that it wasn't someone like Mace Windu because I feel like that would have been too like where is Mace Windu when the sequels come
yeah.
around?
Where
Just
did he come from, right? I feel
yeah,
like Luke Skywalker returning here. We've already pieced together his history between the events of Return of the Jedi, The Mandalorian, and the Force Awakens, where he obviously trains Kylo Ren, and then we figure out his Jedi temple burnt down and all that.
mm,
So we can already piece together the events, whereas with Mace Windu it would have been like, wait, hold up, this makes no sense.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. As cool as it would have been to see, Samuel L. Jackson with a purple
purple
lightsaber
lightsaber.
again.
Yeah,
There are some things that would be so cool to see, but you shouldn't do.
yeah.
But speaking of the history, um, well, actually, before we get to the implications of what this episode means, let's touch on the CGI because I feel like this will be something that is talked about quite a bit.
Hmm.
Um, Look, as he was walking up to the camera, as he came into the room, I was like, okay, is he going to have his hood down? Because that would be sort of weird. And then he put his lightsaber away, and then his hands like slowly started lifting up, and he's like, "Oh no, he's going to take off his hood. He's going to do it. He's going to do it." And I was like, "Oh, that's not good." I didn't think it was that good, and I know you said like you have to enjoy it for what it is, and I do enjoy it for what it is, but I feel like there are different options you could have taken because look, I'll keep talking about it if you've got nothing
Yeah, yeah.
to
Go on,
talk.
go on.
But so they recast Luke Skywalker, right? So it's a different person standing there, and then they digitally altered his face to make it look like
It's a body
Mark.
double. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they've also done the voice. I think the voice was the most impressive thing. I feel like the voice of that character sounded exactly like the Return of the Jedi,
Hmm.
Luke Skywalker.
Yep.
Obviously, they digitally altered Mark Hamill's lines to fit in with the character. But I feel like you've recast Han Solo, and that was rough for fans. That was rough,
Hmm.
but we dealt with it, and we watched Solo recently, and I quite enjoyed it for
Yep.
what it was. And we've seen with Grand Moff Tarkin, you CGI'd him, and it was horrifying. More horrifying than Moff Tarkin could be if the actual actor was there portraying him.
Hmm.
Um, the CGI was very bad, and then obviously we got Princess Leia as well, which was also quite bad. And so for me, it just doesn't make sense why they would try and do it a third time because Luke Skywalker looks like he came out of a video game, and at some shots it looks good. I will admit, like the first scene where he takes his hood off, looks good. But as soon as he starts talking, and as soon as his eyes start look like it was giving me Tron Legacy vibes. But but for me, the voice was the main thing, and seeing him there was good enough.
Hmm.
I feel like you should have just gotten Sebastian Stan and just recast the character and just given Mark Hamill the voiceover lines like they did with Darth Maul and Solo. And then we just never see Luke Skywalker again, or maybe we will. But what are your thoughts on this? Let me know how you feel about what I've just said there.
Look, I think at some point they are going to improve with what they're doing, and uh, de-aging these characters. I feel like actually in the Rise of Skywalker, they probably did it the best. In that scene where we see Leia and Luke training, because I feel like that actually looked really, really good.
That is
Um,
true.
and I feel like that's their best performance yet of doing that. And I'm not gonna lie, it doesn't look good, right? It's facts. It doesn't look good, but I'm not completely annoyed by it. Um,
Yeah,
and they could have gone separate ways, like you said. They could have hired Sebastian Stan, but there's also issues with that. You can say that you can film two projects at a time, but it's going to be mentally draining on the actor. He is doing the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, or he has filmed that, and then obviously he has the role of Luke Skywalker now. And you got to keep in mind that these shows are going to continue. So
for sure. I
he,
think it's possible we'll see Luke Skywalker again as
I
well.
think it's
So
highly possible that we will see him again. And you also said the route of recasting the character like we did with Han Solo, but there's also a big difference there with that because we've never seen a younger Han Solo, right? Um,
true.
between A New Hope and Solo, there was a quite a big time jump there. So I feel like introducing a new actor to play Luke Skywalker just wouldn't feel right because we've seen Luke Skywalker in this age. We've seen him at this point in time. So I feel like they probably couldn't go the point of recasting him there. Although Sebastian Stan does look very, very close to the actor, I probably wouldn't like that. Um, so I do feel like CGIing is the best direction to go. They just need to improve on it a little bit, and I think eventually they will do that. They just need some time to figure it out. Kind of explore. You have to take the hits in order to get better, right? Um,
Mm.
so yeah, that's essentially what they're doing now, and I feel like between now and the next season they'll improve a hell of a lot. Um, but moving on from Luke Skywalker, he's cool and all. um, I really wanted to touch on the scene where we see Grogu and the Mandalorian share this moment, this poetic moment between them when
Hmm.
Grogu gets passed off to Luke Skywalker and R2D2. Oh my god, R2D2 is back. That was also really cool to see.
Oh, that was beautiful.
Yeah,
That was beautiful.
it, it,
R2D2 doesn't get enough love.
it just felt right. Like it felt so fitting, right?
Mm,
Yeah. Um,
it was beautiful.
anyways, so we see the Mandalorian Din Djarin take off his helmet, and this is why I like him taking off his helmet because Pedro Pascal is just such a phenomenal actor. He's incredible, and if you haven't picked up on it, I saw this post on Instagram where um, Pedro Pascal's acting is just so good. If you pay attention, because he has his helmet on so much or so long of the time as character, whenever he looks around the room, mostly people use their eyes to look in their peripheral vision, right? But Pedro Pascal actually turns his whole head to look around when he has his helmet off, and when
Ah,
he's looking down at Grogu when he's at his feet, he points his whole head down. He doesn't just move his eyes
yeah.
down, which I just think is just fantastic acting. It's
Mm,
just like really, really, really small things that you pick up on that makes it so much better. I think that was great, and I was talking about the music before, and the music that actually appears here is called "Open the Door," obviously by Ludwig Göransson, which I think is one of my favorite themes that we've seen thus far in The Mandalorian. I just think it was such a great piece of music that kind of tied in with this scene. Obviously passing off Grogu to uh, Grandmaster Luke Skywalker. I think he is at this point.
Grandmaster. Oh, that
That's so
sounds
cool,
good.
right? Um, yeah, so passing him off so he can learn to be a Jedi again, which he obviously was in training to become one. Um, I think that was just such a great moment. And the scenes where we see Din Djarin and Grogu looking back at each other, I just think was so good. Just great acting, and it kind of feels like they could finish the show there, right? Just tie it off and finish it, and then I'd be
Mm.
happy. Even if we haven't explored what happened to Grogu, because I feel like that ending was just so well done.
Yes, let's talk about that then. So obviously, the episode finishes with Luke Skywalker taking. It sounds so good to say, but taking Grogu to go and train him because Luke Skywalker says talent without training is nothing, and I feel like that's a quote that should just be like put above a photo of Ray Skywalker and just let it sit there because that's just beautiful. I love that. But but obviously there are as much as we love seeing Luke Skywalker back and back to his best, there is a dark shadow over the future because unless they're going to retcon the sequel trilogy, which I don't think they will, even though a lot of fans are excited of the possibility because of Rebels, and apparently there's some sort of timeline breaking stuff in Rebels, but I don't think they're going to do it. I don't think they can do it because you spend so much time making 3 movies. I feel like you have to stick to them, but so if they do in fact stick to them, which I think is entirely likely, obviously Luke Skywalker's temple is going to burn down because of Kylo Ren, and all of his younglings, all of his trainees is going to be killed. So
Yeah.
if this was a definitive ending for The Mandalorian, which it's not, but if it was, and Grogu goes off to Luke Skywalker and then we never see him again, we can only presume that he died because of Kylo Ren.
Yep.
And no one's gonna like that.
No, no, no.
No one likes the thought of Adam Driver's Kylo Ren slaughtering poor baby Yoda as he's standing there, only a couple inches tall, and here comes Kylo, angry Kylo with his red lightsaber, just going through the younglings.
Yeah.
So my theory is that Luke's going to train Grogu, but eventually Grogu's going to have a choice to either stay with Luke or go back to Mando, and he's going to choose to go back to Mando. He's going to be,
Yeah.
he's not going to pursue being a Jedi. He'll come back with Mando because Baby Yoda sells toys, and Baby Yoda is a symbol, I think, of the casual audience that are following this show. There's a huge percentage going, oh my god, it's Luke Skywalker. But then there's also quite a big percentage who are like, oh my god, it's Baby Yoda. Look how cute he is. And like they're watching for Baby Yoda.
Yeah.
So if he disappears now, they're going to lose a big chunk of their audience. So I think he's going to come back. But what are your predictions?
I do think in the next season we are going to see a quite a significant jump in time between season 2 and season 3. I think there's going to be a large gap there, and your theory is actually quite plausible that will happen, because obviously they can't take Grogu away from this show, otherwise people will just stop watching it. Numbers will drop significantly. It's just a given. So, and I do think that at this point in time, seeing Grogu fight with a lightsaber and use the Force, he's still
Can
a
you
child,
imagine?
right? It would just look weird. So I do think that we will see a jump in time, and Grogu will be kind of like a teenager Groot in a way, like we saw Groot
Yeah.
grow up through these stages. I do think we'll see that. I mean, it'll be like a little Padawan with a lightsaber, and then we'll have the adventures of Mandalorian and teenager, uh, teenager Grogu, which I think could be quite cool.
Angsty Force user.
But no, if you're worried about it, he's not going to go away from the show. He's not going anywhere. And at the
He's also
same
not dying. They wouldn't do that.
no, and at the same time, we might actually not see him in the Mandalorian. We might see him in another show. We might see him in Ahsoka's show, because that's also set in the same time events of the Mandalorian. And I think there was another one that's set in the same events.
Yeah, Rangers of the New Republic.
Rangers
That's
of the
going to
New
be Cara
Republic.
Dune.
So we could see it there as well. Who knows? I mean, you've also got a Boba Fett show coming in. So there's so much stuff where all the shows interlink, and there's so many theories floating around. I mean, things like how did the Dark Troopers sense Luke Skywalker if they're droids, right? There's small stuff like that.
True.
Um,
Yeah.
where it leaves the fans up to decide what happened. And there's so much stuff that could lead on to season 3, and I really hope that we do get to see, Grogu grow up and use the Force and have a lightsaber. I feel like that would be so cool.
Yeah, that would be cool. I think predictions for season 3. I think Bo-Katan's going to play a big role if there is in fact a Mandalorian season 3,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like there will be some sort of transition. If they don't bring Grogu back, there will be a transition to Boba Fett and putting the majority of focus on him.
Yep.
But I feel like Grogu's coming back. Yeah. So let's touch on the post-credit scene because Star Wars is the MCU now, so we have to have a post-credit scene, which kind of bugs me because the MCU is great on
Oh,
its own.
come on. The
No, the
post-credit scene
MCU.
didn't bug you.
No, I loved it, but why does it have to be after the credits? Like it's just like I don't know, whatever. But as long as it's not a usual occurrence, so
Yeah.
as long as we don't have post-credit scenes in the movies or some because the MCU is like its own thing. So
The MCU isn't the only thing that does it. It's not the only movie franchise that chucks in post-credit scenes. I mean,
well, like I mean, every other thing's trying to be the MCU.
you can say that the MCU popularized it, but they didn't. They weren't the first ones that did it. So I mean,
Oh, okay,
you know,
I'm not aware of anything else.
yeah, yeah. But at the same time, you can see how people are like, oh, just chuck up before the credits. But it's also kind of a thing where it's like a secret. If people haven't watched all the way through the credits, then they won't get to see it. So
Mm,
I don't know. I
mm,
feel like I kind of
yeah,
like it, but at the same
yeah.
time,
Oh, yeah.
you can just skip through the credits and you'll be fine.
Yeah, yeah. It was nice to see Mark Hamill's name credited in the credits. By the way,
Yep,
I know.
felt good.
Yeah, but I feel like the poor guy who is like actually being Luke Skywalker has just been shafted. Like, Mark Hamill's done some voice work, and the guy who's actually there doing the stunts and standing there and saying I'm Luke Skywalker doesn't get a credit. That's a bit unfortunate for him, but oh
He
well.
might have. I just didn't really know who he was.
Yeah. So let's talk about the contents of the post-credit scene. Obviously, we get to see Jabba's palace
Yep.
again, and my gosh, this whole episode was just like just a gift to people who love the original trilogy, and
It's like
especially Return of the
Return of
Jedi.
the Jedi Part 2, right?
I love it so
It's like
much.
this.
I
It's like
love
this
it.
little extension of Return
Yeah,
of the Jedi.
yeah, yeah. So what were your thoughts on what happened there? And obviously we see
A
I wouldn't say a
familiar
fan
face.
favorite, but a character that we all know
Yep. So
in Jabba's palace.
yeah. So we see. Just a quick reminder, if you haven't seen Return of the Jedi, or if you've forgotten about it, obviously, Jabba the Hutt, who was the leader of the Hutt Syndicate or the underworld, I think it is called. Um, he led that, and he was obviously killed by Princess Leia when she was a slave. Um, so Bib Fortuna, who is the guy with the massive hairpiece that kind
It's
of
like a
wraps around.
neck ring
I
thing.
have no idea what it is.
Yeah,
He was obviously Jabba's like right hand man, so he took over the palace after Jabba the Hutt passed away, or was rather killed. Um,
yeah,
and it's looking quite empty. I'm not gonna lie. At
yeah. And he's
one,
looking pretty fat too.
yeah, yeah, he got bigger. And at one point, I think he was actually gonna. I thought he was actually gonna drop Boba Fett into the Rancor pit,
Oh yeah.
but no, that didn't happen. Boba Fett just straight up kills his character. Um,
Maybe they haven't got another Rancor yet.
yeah, yeah, maybe not. Um, but yeah, I don't know. It felt kind of weird to just kill off this character because he's such an old character.
Yeah.
And then boom, he's dead. But it kind of feels like Boba Fett was like the rightful owner of the seat and like the leader of the underworld. It just felt so cool when he like sat down on the chair and then
Yeah.
Fennec sat on the armchair. It just looks so
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. So
this
badass.
kind of dynamic that we'll get, in the book of Boba Fett, we'll have Fennec Shard, and then we'll have Boba Fett kind of taking on the world, and um, you know, uh, we're going to see a lot of bounty hunters in that show, and I kind of want to create a separate video on this because I do think that we'll see Cad Bane possibly return, and we'll see a a final duel between Boba Fett and Cad Bane. Because if you don't actually know, there was a little scene in season 7 of the Clone Wars that was deleted. It was a deleted scene, and it was a battle between Cad Bane and Boba Fett, and it was just
Mm,
completely cut. Um, so I do think it would be really, really cool if we get to see Cad Bane in live action, bring him back, and we'll see him as like the main villain for that show. I think that could be really awesome.
mm. It'd be an easy character to bring back, with the makeup and,
Yeah,
he's not entirely human, is he? So,
no,
yeah, no, that's awesome. Yeah, I thought that scene was great. I think shout out to Fennec and Cara Dune, two female characters that have been created by Disney, who I I really enjoy
they're
watching.
great.
I
Yeah,
think they're badass. So especially Cara Dune, I love Cara Dune, and obviously I think she's going to be the sort of like the pinpoint or the main protagonist of the Rangers of the High Republic show
yeah.
or whatever it's called. But so it'd be cool to see her get a bit more screen time. She's got a cool backstory too, and it just proves that Disney can do it if they want to.
Mm.
They can make good female characters if they want to, but they just have to keep Kathleen Kennedy away from them as much as possible. So, but no, it was cool to see them. I really like Fennec too. Obviously, we only seen her for about like 3 episodes, but seems like there might be a bit of romance between her and Boba Fett, perhaps. But at the moment, they're friends, and it makes sense.
I'd
And
much rather them stay friends, to be honest.
yeah, that's the deal with most things in movies now. You're like, oh, please don't kiss.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, just go on, like, just be partners. And I feel like they would make a cool partnership. And so definitely a cool dynamic with some cool backstories there. So I'm looking forward to the Book of Boba Fett. And I will say, the Book of Boba Fett, right? It came on screen. It said the Book of Boba Fett coming December 2021. And I'm like, I'm sitting there and I'm like, you know what? A book? I wish it was a TV show, but you know what? I'll take a book. And then I go onto Instagram and people are like, Boba Fett series, look, it's called the Boba Fett. I'm like, I'm sorry, what? Like, you're calling a series the Book of Boba Fett. To me, that just doesn't make sense. Like, am I the only one that thinks that? Or because it says the Book of Boba Fett
Hmm.
coming this 2021. And I'm like, well, I'll give that a read. But it would have been cool to see that on screen.
Yeah, yeah. It's one of those things. It's just one of those weird things that like the film industry does. I mean, you've got things like The Love Story, which obviously has story in the title, and it's not actually a story. It's not a novel. It's just one of those things. The Book of Boba Fett. It's a weird title to go with, right? But I
Mm,
would kind of rather them have something different rather than just Boba Fett. Like
fair enough. Yeah.
it, it's kind of generic if they go for Boba Fett.
I mean, yeah, it could have been like the legend of Boba Fett, or the myth of Boba Fett, or something. Because apparently, there's been some rumors around Tatooine that he survived, and
Mm.
according to Bob Fortuna or whatever his name is.
Bib Fortuna, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So wrapping it up, was this your favorite episode? And if not, what was your favorite episode of season 2? And also, do you think season 2 was better than season 1?
Oh, season 2 was 100% better than season 1. But season 1 was still great because it stood on its own and it didn't bring any familiar characters back.
Mm,
I feel like this season really kind of relied on bringing back, Bo-Katan, Ahsoka Tano. Uh, we've seen. Did I say Boba Fett? Boba Fett's come back. Now Luke Skywalker. I
Yeah,
think there was also rumors floating around that Rex is going to come back.
yeah,
So
yeah.
many
Odd we didn't
characters,
see him actually.
but that's what I like from Star Wars, bringing back these characters that we want to see more of. So yeah, I definitely feel like this is the best season, and this episode in particular. We've talked about it for 54 minutes, so it has to be my favorite. And then second would probably be the Jedi, which is obviously the one with Ahsoka.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think comparing the 2 seasons, I think it's quite difficult because they are so different. It was like season 1 of The Mandalorian sort of earned its own prestige. And then, the producers were like, hey, Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, I see you've got something good here. How about I inject every single other piece of Star Wars fandom into it? And now, obviously, because they've done that, now they can create like bloody 57 new TV shows out of this one season because,
Yeah.
obviously you have the establishment of at least 3 shows
Yeah.
in this one season.
Which we're not
So I
complaining
think,
about.
oh no, of course not. But yeah, so I like season 1 more, I think, in the respect of the Mandalorian character. I feel like that was stronger for the character himself, but obviously season 2, it's hard not to love it as a Star Wars fan because we saw all these new characters come back, and now that's going to, produce so much more content for us. And obviously, the more content, the better. Fingers crossed. Anyway, um, so so yeah, I enjoyed season 2. I enjoyed it so much watching Boba Fett come back and watching Luke Skywalker come back, and even Bo-Katan. Obviously, I've only seen the Clone Wars once, but I know people were, incredibly excited to see Clone Wars given a bit of prestige
Yeah,
in
yeah,
live action.
yeah.
And obviously Ahsoka as well. I feel like that was my favorite episode, and I feel like, critically speaking, that probably should be the best episode because I feel like it was the episode itself was quite interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Like the narrative in that episode, it was almost disguised as a bit of a filler episode at some stages, but we got Ahsoka talking to Grogu. We learnt Grogu's name and backstory.
Mm-hmm.
We had some cool character development with Mando too.
Yep.
And obviously, we get that with the final episode too. So, yeah, Ahsoka's episode was my favorite. I feel like that episode was flawless in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think the most I'm looking for the show that I'm most looking forward to is the Ahsoka show. To be honest, because obviously we had the name drop of Admiral Thrawn, and obviously possibility of Rex coming back. But even if he doesn't, Ahsoka is such a cool character, and I'd love to see that story play out. But yeah, I mean, season 2 was something special, wasn't it?
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on a little thing I saw. IMDb actually rated this a 9.9 out of 10, which I think is the 10th best episode on TV that they've ever rated.
Oh,
So
that's
it's
incredible.
number 10,
I didn't think it was that good at all.
which
That's
is
because of Luke Skywalker. Take Luke Skywalker out, and that's like a 7.
yeah,
You know?
it's a really really high rated episode. But no, I feel like it's fitting. I wouldn't probably rate it a 9.9, but
You can tell like so many fans have just been like 10 out of 10, 10 out of 10.
yeah. Well, IMDb actually has professional critics that they hire to rate it, so it's not fans, it's actual
Oh, so
people
it's not
rating it.
the general one. It's actually the critics one.
It's the critics.
Is it?
Yeah.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah.
Maybe they're fans too. No, critics aren't allowed to like anything. That's not their job. Regardless, this season was great.
Yeah.
I enjoyed talking about each episode and going through the journey because it has been a journey, with all of the new characters popping up. This episode will go live a couple of days before our podcast on Rogue One. So if you're still listening and you want more Star Wars stuff, check out our opinions on Rogue One. They'll be coming Friday. I'm looking forward to reviewing that film because obviously one of the other good things to come out of Disney Star Wars.
Yeah, and if I have some spare time, I'm thinking of doing a video on Luke Skywalker appearing in this episode, and then touching on the Boba Fett TV show, and just the future of Star Wars and where it's leading, because they've got so much to do. Yeah.
No, that would be awesome. But that's all I want to say for now. Mandalorian season 2. If I could give it any sort of tier rating, I'd probably give it like an A-.
Yep.
Not bad enough to be a B+. I'd say it earns its spot on the A tier. But those filler episodes, I got quite a few of them, and for an 8 episode long season, you got to cut them out. I'm sorry, but that's my opinion anyway. What are your thoughts if you could give an A tier rating?
I'd give it an A. It's not
Fair
perfect
enough.
because we did have filler, and it's interesting that you say there was a lot because I can only think of one. But no, it's not perfect. But bringing back Luke Skywalker has definitely just raised the bar for Star Wars. They've got so much to live up to now.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see what they do with that character. But that's all from me. I don't know if you have anything to add,
No.
Jaden.
I'm worried.
But we'll sign off of Mandalorian season 2. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.
See ya.